So hello, so we're going to be doing the practical 2, which is on this topic, which is chatbot training and specifically intents. And so we're going to learn how to create intents in more detail and learn how to add user expressions and responses. So to learn this, we're going to do a bit of practice and we're going to have this scenario. Management has noted that the company's customer support is overburdened by responding to the same questions over and over. As a result, they plan to train a bot to help answer FAQ questions and free agents time to work on more complex issues. The FAQ is contained in this address. So let's just take a look at this FAQ. Okay, so basically we're going to create an FAQ bot, a simple FAQ bot, which will answer some questions related to credit cards, and we're just going to use as our case the FAQ data here in DBS. So of course, this is a very common use case of chatbots, wherein you want to free your customer service of these repetitive tasks. You can train your bot to answer questions related to an FAQ. So we're going to look at some of the features of Dialogflow and the process of creating all of these intents and the process of training these bots. All right, so let's just get right into it. So we created a Dialogflow account last meeting. So we're going to use the same bot, the same agent from last week. But if you want to practice and create a new one, feel free. So in your browser, just type Dialogflow, okay, and then just go to the console. All right, so I'm just going to use this agent since we've already created it. But if you want to create a new one, you can actually go here and create a new agent. So there is a limit, I think three agents that you can create. There is a limit in this free version, but that'll be more than enough for our needs. But I'm just going to use this agent right here. Now, before we proceed to creating these intents, just want to show you a few things that are useful for you all. Okay, so we're going to be focusing on intent. So this sidebar here will contain all these different elements related to your chatbot that you need to configure. If you click on this gear icon, there's some interesting things here. Okay, you could have a description of your agent, but this doesn't affect what the user will see. Okay, so nothing much here. If you want to delete the agent, then you can do it right here as well. So more importantly here is export and import. So in your agent, you can create a backup of your agent. It will export all your intents, entities, contacts, basically your whole agent into a zip file. Okay, so you can restore from zip. So basically it says here, replace the current agent version with a new one, import from zip, upload new intents and entities without deleting the current ones. Okay, so you can just read through some of these things. So when you submit your agents, you can also submit your zip file, because that will allow me or your lecturer to actually run your agent. So it will allow them to run your agent, and you can see exactly, what kind of training have you done, what kind of intents did you use. So that's one thing you should do in your CAs, is I ask you to export your agent out and submit that. It'll be a very small file because this is just text essentially. Okay, so the rest of these things we are not going to be using. Okay, so the rest of these things are really not important at this point. We're not really going to use much of this except for export and import. Okay, so we didn't really change anything, so I'm just going to go back here. So this is what we did last week. We basically created this intent called say anything with one training phrase. So if we click on this intent, you see that we actually created this training phrase, okay, just to test out the bot. I'm going to say anything, and then we had this response, which is anything, right? Very simple bot here. So let's just create something more useful, and so let us follow the practical here. Okay, so going back to this practical, let's just follow it. So the first one here is we're going to create the intent. So in the intent text box, enter FAQ eligibility. So this will answer questions related to eligibility. You're going to be adding these training phrases. Okay, so let's just go and do that. The text response, we can just create the response right here. So let's just run through that. So to create an intent, if you recall, we just basically click on this, and then we will just call this thing FAQ-eligibility. Now, normally, a few things about naming your intents. You want to name it with something that is meaningful. You do not want to use things like special characters, spaces, and the like. In fact, normally I don't even want to use this dash, because when we go into coding, that might cause some issues in certain cases. However, since we're not doing any back-end or fulfillment or any coding, then at this point, this is perfectly fine. So anyway, this is the name. You call this the name of your intent. And then the training phrases. Okay, so let's just take a look at, eligibility, the first one here. Am I eligible for a credit card? All right, so let's just go in here and add what you call the training phrase. Okay, how would the user say it? Am I eligible for a credit card? Okay, so that is one thing you could ask. Maybe I can also say something like, what are the requirements for a credit card? Right. Or something like, okay, so to add other phrases, just press enter here. Press enter, yeah. So, can I get a credit card? So you get the idea. So every phrase that you place here should be a phrase which is supposed to match this intent. Okay? So of course, the more you have, the better for the machine learning algorithm. Okay, so for this case, maybe we shall focus on the credit card. We will have a response here. So for this case, let's just apply this fixed response. Right, so I'm just going to copy this out. And then for this, we can go into the response here and just paste it in. Now you could add alternative responses. The purpose of the alternative response is so that the bot will become more human-like. So it will choose some random response from this. But for this case, because it's such a long response, I'm just going to stick to one. And that's basically that. And so let's save that. And then let us now try it out. There you go. So you can see that the bot matches it, and it will respond with whatever response you have defined. There was a student who asked me last time, is this just a matter of pattern matching? Meaning it is looking exactly at these words and then basically matching whatever is in this sentence and then saying, okay, because I see all of these words here, then this thing is actually triggering. So the idea behind this AI and all this machine learning is it's supposed to match it even though it's not exactly the same. Okay, as you get more responses, you should be able to place in sentences which do not correspond exactly to what you've trained it, but it's supposed to figure it out. That is the whole point of using the AI algorithms, no? Or the AI methodology. Okay, so for example, let me just write here. Is it possible for me? Okay, no, not here, sorry. So let me just write here something else. Let's see if it'll match it. Is it possible for me to get a card? See, didn't get that. Can I get a card? There, see? It's not exactly all the words were there, but somehow it understood that. How about if I say, is it possible for me to get a credit card? Yeah. See? This one, because of these whatever keywords and the like, or the AI algorithm, it sort of understood what you meant and it triggered the proper intent. Okay? So that is what we mean when we say this is an AI chatbot. You have the benefit of it learning from your training phrases, and you don't have to have exactly the same wording or sequence of words in the sentence. So let's proceed. Okay, so let's create another intent. This time, FAQ processing time. So to create another intent, just click the plus button here. Like so, and then just follow the sequence of steps. Okay, so this one is supposed to answer questions related to processing time. Okay, so if you look here, this is one of the questions. It answers how long does it take. So I'm just going to copy this here. So I will just place it here in text response. I'm going to add now the training phrases. So let's start with the given one. How long does it take? How long is the processing time? When will I get my card? So right now, let's just have 3 of these. Again, you have to make sure you save it. If you don't save it, it will not save automatically. Okay, so let's ask it now. Okay, when will my card be finished? There it is. Okay, so not exactly the same phrase, but it sort of understood it. So that's what I mean when I say Dialogflow is smarter than other chatbot frameworks I've used. With only these 3 sentences, 3 training phrases, it can pick up on similar sentences. Right? So you can see from this simulator, in fact, you could also try it. Let's see this thing here. When will the card be finished? When will the card be finished? See that? So it works. So this Dialogflow works as well with voice because the voice is simply translated to text. Even though I keep on talking about text input, Dialogflow also works with voice. It processes it in the same way. Okay, now another thing about this is from this simulator here, right? So this is where you actually test your intents whenever you've created it. This simulator should behave in the same way as a chatbot which is connected to Facebook Messenger or to Telegram, which we did last week. It will work in the same way. Meaning, if you receive it here, you receive a certain response here, you should get the same response in Facebook or the same response in Telegram. If you don't get the same response, it simply means you might be accessing a different bot. Perhaps you're accessing a different agent. Okay, because it's supposed to be processed by the same entity, by the same system, by the same agent, whether it comes from Facebook, Telegram, or this simulator. Now, are they exactly the same? No, in the sense that Facebook Messenger or Telegram might have its own way of presenting what you call rich messages, images, what you call quick replies, and stuff like that, right? Like the simulator, if I want to view quick replies, I don't believe it will show it. Now, in the future, it may. At this point, it does not. Same thing for the web. It might show things in a different way or might not support certain rich features. And we're going to go into rich content in a moment. But that is different. So there is no problem testing your bot here in this simulator. You should be able to expect Facebook Messenger to also respond in the same way. So let's move on now. So going forward, so we have done this first 2 parts. If you can, as a practice, do create more intents. Okay, and then I will expect that submission at the end of this session and just see 7 FAQ related intents. So each intent will answer a different FAQ question. Now you might say, sir, isn't this overly tedious? You might be asking. What if I have 100 FAQ questions? Do I need to create 100 intents? Do I need to create 100 intents for 100 FAQ questions? Right, so it is tedious because you are defining your intents statically, meaning we are hard coding the responses. Just like a website, wherein if your website doesn't have a database, then you would have to create 100 HTML pages or 100 features would require maybe 100 pages. But if you have a database, the program or the fulfillment will actually dynamically create this content. So based on some logic, it would be able to dynamically create. So you wouldn't need so many web pages, in the same way that if you have the fulfillment, you would be able to create the dynamic response, maybe based on one intent. It would be possible, but that's later on. Okay, so right now, if you have something static like this is how you would normally do it. So as the exercise, do create more intents here, but let me run through first assigning unmatched requests. So in Dialogflow, it is possible to certain users test your bot. As we have seen from the previous practical, you could actually have a link to your Dialogflow bot and send it to a friend of yours or to a few testers, and then for them to try it out. So the question there is, what if the bot is making incorrect responses? How do you actually improve the performance of the bot? Okay, so to do that, if you look here at exercise 3, it will show you training. It will show you a way to improve the training by assigning unmatched or incorrect matches to the proper intent. So you have things like click to assign, and then click approve, and then test it once again. So this is a way to sort of keep on improving your bot. So as more and more testers, or more and more even people could be considered testers, right? More and more people are using your bot, and you're seeing how it is failing, or what are the most common questions. You can keep on improving the bot by using these steps. So let me just demonstrate that. So for example, I'm going to give it a phrase, which in this phrase, I also want to get the processing time. Okay, so here I ask it the question, what's the timetable for my card? Okay, and saying here it did not match it accordingly, right? So you can see, of course, by the response that it is incorrect. You can also see it via the intent, that it did match to this particular default fallback intent. So this is a mismatch. Okay, this is a mismatch. Right? You can also see that from Diagnostic Info. Right? So if you look at this, now this one we are not going to be using much in this first part, but I'm just showing you that there is such a thing called Diagnostic Info. And this will actually tell you something like what is the intent that was matched. You can see it right here, right? The intent that is matched, the name of the intent is called default fallback intent, which is not what you wanted. Okay, so there's a few ways to view the intent. Okay, so to correct this, you could actually see this in training. So let's just go here in training. Okay, so I'm just going to click on this. So you can see here, so under training, you can hear the conversations. And you can see here today was basically there was a bunch of 8 requests. So we can inspect this request and see, what happened here. It says there are 2 that were not matched at all. Okay. So if I click on that, you can see now and observe, the performance. So it says, can I get a credit card? And then basically it matched to FAQ eligibility. Okay. Is it possible for me to get a card? So it says here that it's fact eligibility. Yeah. So this one, somehow it registered as FAQ processing time. So anyway, let's just correct this. So let's say this showed up. So we can actually correct it here. FAQ eligibility, right? Can I get a card? So again, this is also eligibility. Okay, so this one. Okay, so this one is correct. This one is correct. This one though is not correct. It went to the default fallback intent, right? What's the timetable for my card? So we can correct this now. And we can say that this is FAQ processing time. Let's try that again. Let's approve that. So what is the timetable for my card? Oh, there. So now it's working. What is the timetable for my card? So I don't know if it was just not trained yet. There it is. So it actually is added in. See, it is actually added in. Maybe we didn't save that. Okay, so that's an issue. Okay, so that's more or less how you correct errors or how you improve the training. So this training tab, that's how it would be used. Yeah, so basically it's supposed to automatically add to the list of expressions after the assignment.